Right now, American warships are parked off the coast of Venezuela. The world's most powerful aircraft carrier is leading the charge. The US president has declared the country's airspace closed, and in a secret phone call no one saw coming, he just spoke directly to the dictator he's threatening to destroy. The world is holding its breath, asking one terrifying question: are we watching the first moments of a new American war? But something doesn't add up. The reason given for this invasion doesn't make sense. The legal justifications are falling apart, and with one shocking move, the president may have just revealed his true game. This isn't a simple story about good guys and bad guys. This is a high-stakes game of geopolitical poker where the entire Western Hemisphere is the table and the stakes are power, oil, and chaos. Let's peel back the layers. The drumbeat of war is growing louder, and its source is Washington, D.C. For weeks, the Trump administration has been escalating its rhetoric and military posture against Venezuela, a nation crippled by economic collapse but sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves. The public rationale is a familiar one: the fight against narco-terrorism. President Trump and his officials paint the government of Nicolás Maduro as a criminal narco-state, flooding the United States with cocaine and necessitating a forceful response. The imagery is potent: evil cartels, a corrupt dictator, and America's righteous duty to intervene. It's a story designed to justify action. But dive just beneath the surface, and this narrative begins to crack under the weight of its own contradictions. The first and most glaring crack is legal. The administration has already begun what critics call war by another name in the Caribbean. Reports have emerged of double-tap strikes on suspected drug smuggling boats, attacks where a second strike is launched to target survivors from the first. Legal experts and veteran lawmakers are sounding the alarm, stating that such actions may blatantly violate the laws of armed conflict, which prohibit targeting combatants who are hors de combat, out of the fight due to injury or surrender. Retired Navy Captain and Senator Mark Kelly, a former combat pilot, said point-blank he would have refused such an order, stating, "Going after survivors in the water, that is clearly not lawful." Meanwhile, Congress is stirring with rare bipartisan concern, demanding answers the Pentagon seems unwilling or unable to fully provide. The foundational legality of the entire campaign is in question before a single Marine has set foot on Venezuelan soil. This legal unease is compounded by a constitutional crisis in the making. The Trump administration is crafting novel legal theories to justify force against drug traffickers by designating them as terrorists. However, critics argue the president is effectively waging war without the congressional authorization required by the Constitution. He is sidestepping the very system of checks and balances designed to prevent the rash use of military power. The message it sends is chilling. This administration believes it can define its own enemies, write its own rules of engagement, and act with few traditional constraints. This isn't just about Venezuela, it's a precedent for how much power the executive branch can seize in the name of national security. Then comes the contradiction that threatens to collapse the entire narrative. In late November, President Trump announced his intention to pardon former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez. This is not a minor figure. Hernandez was convicted just a year ago on staggering charges of conspiring to traffic over 400 tons of cocaine into the United States and using his presidency to run Honduras as a virtual narco-state. He is serving a 45-year sentence. Trump's pardon offer is a seismic event. How can the same president claim a moral and strategic imperative to launch military action against Venezuela's Maduro for allegedly doing the same thing, while simultaneously freeing a convicted kingpin who did it on an industrial scale? As Senator Tim Kaine put it, this move suggests us that President Trump cares nothing about narco-trafficking. It exposes the war on drugs justification as potentially hollow, forcing us to ask, if the drugs aren't the real reason, what is? The timing of the pardon is equally suspicious. It came just days before a pivotal presidential election in Honduras. Trump also publicly endorsed a candidate from Hernandez's own party, threatening on social media that the U.S. would not work with anyone else. This is not an isolated incident, it's a pattern. Look across Latin America. Trump has fiercely backed leaders who align with his America First strongman politic. He imposed crushing tariffs on Brazil after it prosecuted his ally Jair Bolsonaro. He dangled a massive financial lifeline to Argentina, tied to support for his friend Javier Milei. He praises El Salvador's Nayib Bukele, who styles himself the world's coolest dictator. Conversely, he feuds with leftist leaders like Colombia's Gustavo Petro. A clear blueprint emerges: support ideological allies, punish adversaries, and use every tool, tariffs, aid, and now pardons, to sway political outcomes in America's backyard. Venezuela, the hemisphere's most prominent leftist holdout, is the ultimate prize in this campaign. The military buildup, therefore, looks less like a prelude to invasion and more like the ultimate pressure tactic in a broader strategy of regime consolidation. It's about installing a friendly government in Caracas, not necessarily through tanks, but through the threat of them. This leads to the central, terrifying question: is this a bluff? All signs point to a massive psychological operation. The goal is likely to create such an overwhelming atmosphere of imminent doom that the Maduro regime cracks from within. The hope in Washington is that Venezuelan generals, facing the specter of the U.S. military's full might, will turn on Maduro and stage a coup to avoid annihilation. Or that Maduro himself, like a character in a mafia movie, will accept Trump, offer he can't refuse, and flee into exile. The secret phone call between the two men is the ultimate clue here. It's the back-channel negotiation, the final deal-making attempt before the guns, real or imagined, go off. This strategy is high risk, high reward. If it works, Trump could claim a historic victory without firing a shot, toppling a hated regime and planting a friendly flag atop the world's oil reserves. He would be the ultimate dealmaker. But if it fails, the consequences could be catastrophic. Bluffs only work if your opponent believes you will follow through. If Maduro and his generals call the bluff, Trump is left with a horrifying choice: back down and suffer a humiliating, historic loss of face that would cripple his authority globally, or double down and plunge America into a complex, bloody, and deeply unpopular war. The American public is not on board. Polls show overwhelming opposition to military action in Venezuela and deep skepticism about the threat it poses. The ghosts of Iraq and Afghanistan haunt this scenario. Wars launched on shaky intelligence with no plan for the day after, leading to decades of chaos. Analysts warn that an invasion of Venezuela, a vast and fractured nation, could unleash a humanitarian disaster dwarfing the current crisis, sending millions more refugees flooding across borders. So we are left watching a slow-motion crisis where every actor is gambling. Trump is gambling that fear alone will win the day. Maduro is gambling that Trump is unwilling to pay the political and human cost of a real war. The Venezuelan people are trapped in the middle, pawns in a game of geopolitical chicken. The U.S. military sits, a sword hovering, waiting to see if it will be sheathed or swung. The world holds its breath. The story of Venezuela is no longer just about Venezuela. It is a test of power, a case study in modern brinkmanship, and a warning of how the lines between diplomacy, coercion, and war are blurring in our new era. The final move has yet to be played. The only certainty is that the outcome will reshape the Americas for a generation.